Welcome, friends, to a raw and deeply personal account of a husband grappling with his wife's recurrent departures, leaving him and their son in turmoil. As he navigates the complexities of their tumultuous relationship, he seeks guidance and support from the community. Let's dive into this emotional journey together.
My wife, 25F, left our son and I, 34M, for the fourth time. What do you think the course of action should be? Hey everyone, my wife left our son and I just last night, and this is the fourth time within the last 2 years. We've been married for 6 years. I don't really know where to begin, but I guess I'll start from the beginning of when the issue started. About 2 years ago, my wife started to change. It was very subtle, but she began to cut off people, including her own mother and siblings. She started to claim she was an independent woman and didn't need anyone as she began hanging out with her coworker, female, often and showing up at home 5 to 6 hours after work, usually drunk. After I confronted her about not being there and causing me to do all of the housework after I got off of work, she got defensive and left to stay the night at her coworker's house and showed back up 2 days later without even saying sorry. On the second occurrence, she just randomly started bringing up the past while we were talking about how life was going well and we could pay off our mortgage loan in 2 years. She started to break down out of nowhere and brought up her past and how she was raped at 13 years old by her guidance counselor, how her mother and siblings abused her, and how she had nobody. I comforted her, and she pushed me away, and no matter what I said to calm things down, she twisted everything I said to make it sound like I was attacking her. She then stormed off without even wearing shoes or grabbing her phone and went to the ER at midnight. She came back 3 days later after staying with an old friend. Afterwards, she started counseling and got on medications and was diagnosed with PTSD and bipolar depression. On the third occurrence, it was Christmas Eve and everything was going well, or so I thought, as it had been 5 months since her last episode, and again, out of nowhere, she started bringing up her past and said some awful things. She told me that she was a horrible wife and mother and that she was broken and not good enough to be with anyone. She went off on my mother, who was present, and when my mother asked what was going on, my wife pushed her to the ground and stormed out the back door and ended up going to the ER again and was committed to a mental health center where she spent 5 days. She came back home afterwards and things went well for quite a while, until yesterday. On this latest occurrence, she came home drunk as hell. She rarely drinks and was straight up looking for a fight with me. She baited me into getting mad at her by verbally attacking me and twisted everything I said negatively, and when she couldn't do that, she just cried while telling me she was worthless, and in all honesty, she had her mind set on leaving no matter what I did. She ended up leaving again to go to the ER and was committed yet again for about a week, and when I called her after 3 days, she said she was doing well and couldn't wait to come home and things seemed to be doing better. Fast forward 2 days after she got out, and she left again and blocked my number despite me doing nothing wrong and trying to be supportive. I am not perfect by any means. I am too down to earth and lack ambition, I guess you could say. I'm content with just being financially stable and providing a decent life for us and our son, but my wife has always had very lofty goals. She wants to move to a different state and cut off everyone and has her mind set on acquiring a house well beyond our means, and has hinted that she would go there on her own and leave our son and I behind if need be, and that she didn't need us and could get whatever she wanted on her own. The thing is, when I met my wife, she was homeless and did anything it took to get by and hung around a lot of unsavory types because she just didn't care and lived day to day not caring what happened. She broke free from that life when she met me and was doing well for years until for some reason her past caught up to her. I blame a lot of what has happened on her getting back in contact with her old best friend who is heavily into meth, who used to also be her old FWB. He is homeless and gets by through robbery and stealing and has been in jail a few times. I feel like maybe I'm not street smart enough for my wife. There are many times where she tried to convince me to steal items or even hit her, and I feel like I wasn't abusive enough for her to be happy. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's all I can come up with. I feel like my wife enjoys the struggle of losing control while high, not knowing where she will sleep, not knowing where her next meal will come from, and in all honesty, she has never cared about our son. There are times when she just bend over naked in front of our son and ask me to have sex with her then and there, for instance. I have truly wanted this marriage to work, but I feel like it's just pointless even bothering anymore. The first 3 times I was heartbroken, but this time I just feel indifferent, honestly. To the point that I feel so disillusioned that I could literally divorce her tomorrow and get into a new relationship with somebody who is the polar opposite of my wife and not even miss a step or look back whatsoever. When my wife introduced me to her mother early on in our relationship, before we got married obviously, her mother pulled me to the side and warned me that her daughter was a severe hypochondriac. I ignored it at the time, but as each day passed I feel like this was the truth. There were many times when my wife was just experiencing a cold or was on her period and would whine constantly until I took her to the ER where we got nothing but a bill. I can honestly say that my wife has been to the ER at least a dozen times in just the past 2 years, and we've accumulated a lot of debt due to this, which has led to getting loans and taking out more loans to pay off loans in an endless cycle where we went from financially secure to living paycheck to paycheck at best. And I'm not trying to sound insensitive by any means. I am just calling it as I see it, and I feel like I was abused, but worse yet, that our son was abused due to having to go through all of this and witness his mother in states he should never have to witness. I guess that covers things though. I would like to say I'm hurt over all of this, but I'm not whatsoever. All of my sympathy/empathy for her ended after what I've been through while being with her. The sad thing is that without my wife's income and the amount of debt I now have, there is no possible way that I can afford the house, so I'm either moving back in with my parents or going to be homeless at 34 years old. Yeah. If anything, I'm just angry because I did everything right and it didn't matter because I never had a say in anything despite paying most of the bills, preparing 99% of meals, cleaning the house 99% of the time, taking our son to school 99% of the time, and pulling 99% of the weight in the relationship overall. All my wife ever did for me was provide sex often and spontaneously, and when it comes to our son, she gave birth to him? At least when my time comes decades from now, I can die knowing I tried my best and I was a damn good father. Better than even my own father, who was excellent and raised my brother and I the best he could manage. I honestly pity my wife because she is incapable of knowing love and just fakes it to make it when it comes to everything. I get that her past was rough, but I feel as though she blew everything out of proportion, and from her stories she told me through the years, she always had a thing for older guys and was masturbating multiple times a day from a young age and called me daddy during sex, so I honestly just don't know what to believe anymore when it comes to her. I know that she isn't genuine when it comes to a lot of things and fabricates issues and has a kink for abuse and enjoys suffering, none of which I understood as it was irrational to me, but I played along just to placate her. Sorry. I guess I am rambling at this point, but I had to get all of that off of my chest before the shell shock wears off. Thank you all for your time, and I appreciate any replies that bear fruit because this basket is empty right now, and I can't tell apples from oranges because I don't have any.
Now, let's shift our focus to the perspectives shared by members of the community, shedding light on the broader implications of this family's crisis.
Damn, I feel really bad for the poor kid who has these two as parents. Can one of you do better? He's also very conveniently leaving his own very serious issues out of this post and making out like his wife is the only fucked up one here. Conveniently didn't mention his own lengthy history of mental health and substance use issues. Conveniently didn't mention he attempted suicide at the end of last year and was hospitalized. Conveniently didn't mention the time he was desperate to get clean from marijuana because he had a court appearance. Conveniently didn't mention his other drug use, using shrooms. The poor kid will probably be better off in kinship or foster care at this point. As a parent of a young child, my heart breaks thinking about what this child has witnessed and the dysfunction he's being raised in. These experiences have lifelong impacts on the developing brain and are setting this child up for their own dysfunctional, chaotic life ahead. The kid deserves so much more than either of these parents can provide him. It goes without saying these two should be divorced. Two fuck-ups together just make everything infinitely worse. They need to get divorced, sort their shit out individually, mental health inpatient stays for both, intensive therapy for both, drug rehab and ongoing drug tests for both to prove sobriety, prove they can live independently, in stable housing, earning income, and then they could possibly be deserving of supervised access visits with their child. But right now this child is at severe risk of abuse and neglect, and being exposed to things little kids should never have to deal with. Opie, get your shit together and admit you're a big part of this problem too. Not just, oh yeah, I'm not perfect, I'm too down to earth and lack ambition. That's disingenuous lying BS. To be fair, it seems Opie may have met his wife when she was a kid herself. When they started dating she was 19 and he was 28. He doesn't say how old she was when he met her ETA. I stand corrected. They got married when she was a teenager and he was 28. Yup, she became an adult. Crazy to think that one day your teenage bride will be a fully grown adult with their own personality and new opinions. /S. They got married when she was 19. Most likely he met her when she was 17 or even younger. Maybe 18. He preyed on a child. Past comments say they dated only 6 months prior to getting married. So hopefully she was 18/19 at least. Not that it's even much better. Having a conversation is bad enough with someone that young, let alone a relationship/marriage. The uneven power balance here is very questionable when she was not just much younger but homeless and vulnerable at the time. Let's look at what's presented in best case. A 28-years-old man married a 19-years-old struggling, homeless, drug-addicted girl. Is into it cause she provides sex often and easily. She has abuse and daddy kinks. She proceeds to be diagnosed with PTSD, which may I mention her entire behavior lines up with breakdowns, health anxiety, presumably flashbacks, avoidance. She opens up about past trauma, which explains the kinks and early masturbation since this can manifest due to sexual abuse. She probably grew up more and started learning about what really is going on with her. I wonder if everything went fine for a while just means that she shut up about her issues for a while. I'm not saying she's a faultless angel. Their kid doesn't deserve abandonment. But you can't tell me this grown-ass man has no fault in this situation? Getting a clearly unwell teen pregnant, marrying her and being surprised when she's actually unwell and not mature enough to be a parent? Being shocked about her acting irrational and doing nothing but blaming her? Is that really the most reliable narrator? I don't know the full story, but this raises a lot of concern for this woman, and not because she's immature, but because she clearly needs help. If anything, I'm just angry because I did everything right. Marrying a drug-addicted teenager when you were pushing 30 does not line up with this claim. So you as a 28-year-old met a homeless 19-year-old and decided to save her, and now you're surprised it's not working out? Maybe grow a spine and stop dating homeless teenagers and expecting a housewife. He also says he feels pity for her because she is unable to love. He is an unreliable narrator who is creepy as all get out, lol. I mean, you picked a project up off the street that already had a bunch of issues and chose to ignore the red flags and warnings. So wild that having a baby with a homeless, drug-addicted teenager did not go well. Who could have predicted? Yeah, I'm running the numbers, and she was a homeless 19-year-old when they got married, and he was 28? And he doesn't say how old their son is, which is immediately making me look askance at Opie, and this whole post sounds like a mess. Yeah, it gives major red flags. A lot of abusive or manipulative men go for women in situations like that because they want to have all the control in the relationship and can't handle a woman of equal standing or at a similar point in life. This whole post is half, look how much I've done, look how much I've put up with, see how awesome I am, and half talking in a really gross way about a mentally ill woman who has basically been abused by everyone for her entire life. Yuck. Just yuck. Fuck. I hate this. But it's so true. I picked my second wife at 36, a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, and was shocked when there was a never-ending stream of drama during our short marriage. I mean, dude, the OP needs therapy as much as she does for making this choice. It took me a little over years before I got the help I needed to have the self-love on board to make better choices. OP needs as much therapy as her. Your wife is not mentally healthy enough to be in a relationship or be a mother. Her behavior is a pattern. She is not changing. This isn't healthy for you or your child.
An objective observation, the wife's recurring behavior patterns suggest an unhealthy dynamic for both the spouse and child. Okay, let's proceed. With this observation in mind, let's explore the next steps.
Not to be too harsh, but she was living on the streets and got picked up as a teenager by someone much older than her. It's not surprising this happened. So you were 29 when you married a 19-year-old? How old was she when you started dating her? No fucking does she has a trauma history. She wouldn't have been fucking a 30-year-old otherwise. Odds are you're a fucking groomer who saw a damaged teenager and decided to bang her. I'm sure she's an unstable parent. Again, no fucking duh. Sorry your child bride isn't working out the way you had hoped. I can't get over the fact that he's saying she left him. like breaking up or some shit when she's checking herself into mental hospitals. I have never ever heard anyone say, "they left me," to mean anything other than a breakup or giving up on the relationship, which is soon not what's been described here. It's fucking weird beyond belief and doesn't make OP look like the poor, neglected, taken for granted husband he seems to think he is. I wrote this elsewhere, but this whole post is half look at Saint Me and half talking in a really disgusting way about a mentally ill woman he claims to love, who has actually been abused by everyone for her whole life. It's disgusting. I feel the same way. Just trashing his mentally ill, traumatized wife while singing his own praises. While his post history says otherwise though too. Apparently he's abusive and mentally ill himself, which is far more concerning for his wife. I cannot imagine the life she must live with this vile person. Well, yeah, I figured he had issues, just from the fact that he picked up a homeless, mentally ill child when he was in his late 20s. Kind of comes with the territory. Yeah, I think what's really happening is that she's aging out for OP. She's growing up and seeking help. He misses the days when she was homeless and helpless. It's vile and hopefully rage bait. The absolute nerve to say she's blowing things out of proportion and not genuine about the abuse she endured, cause she's always had a thing for older guys, masturbated as a child, and has abuse kinks like those aren't fucking telltale signs of childhood abuse. He can fuck all the way off. Even the times when she wasn't checked into a hospital, like the first, she was only gone for a couple of days to get her head together and stay with friends. No one on earth has ever honestly described that as leaving us. Yeah, I'm calling this out of Reddit's pay grade. You picked up a homeless teenager at almost 30, seem shocked she has a host of mental health issues, and also make zero sense when it comes to money. How are you paying most of the bills, but will be homeless if she leaves? If the mortgage is almost paid off completely, sell the house, she gets her share, and buy you and your son a smaller one with a huge down payment. Low mortgage. Done. Your financial situation doesn't make sense. You mentioned she was diagnosed, but make zero mention of treatment other than stays in inpatient facilities. What have you both done to keep her well other than ears and ignoring the issue? I honestly feel like she's fucked up. You knew this, and you have a kink for being the savior / taking on project people. Now you're wondering where that went wrong? Get the woman help and get out. You haven't thought this through in any meaningful way, and I suspect it's because you still think you can be the savior and live the look of being the stable one and the victim. Get over it and start thinking about your son. You both need therapy, and you need to do something for your son. You had no business dating a teenager as a full-grown man, first of all. Second of all, get a divorce. Get a lawyer to help with custody. Get proof of her hospitalizations, and require sobriety and proof of good mental health before you let her back around your child without supervision. Hate. I'm confused on what grounds you thought things were ever fine. Doesn't sound like you initiated a single conversation about anything that happened, or you strangely omitted it here. You can't just bury stuff like this under the rug. Another good reason not to marry a teenager. Move on. This is not healthy for your child. So you groomed a homeless, mentally ill child and married her before she was 20, when you were nearly 30. Now you're whining because she's mentally and emotionally unwell. Suck it up, Buttercup. You're gross and I feel sorry for your kid. You married someone with severe and untreated or inadequately treated psychiatric and trauma-related issues. You cannot fix her. This is a host of issues that will take a professional team years to improve. That is only if she is willing to engage and work on the treatment. What you describe is a mountain of indicators of a person who suffered childhood sexual abuse. You can feel sympathy, compassion, and even love for a person who has suffered unimaginable trauma. That does not mean you allow them to harm you or your child, or to create an unsafe environment for you or your child. Your course of action is to secure a safe place for you and your child, immediately divorce, and start working on rebuilding your life. He, an adult, married a homeless, traumatized teenage girl, probably because he had knocked her up. He's not any better than any of the previous adults in her life. I feel for their child. When you are young, homeless, and on your own, you don't have time to think about your psyche. You are in survival mode. She has a lot of shame and odd views on sexual behavior. She now has a safe environment to live in, so all those things she kept buried keep popping up. I know you love her, and she loves you, but she is feeling like she is going to implode. Can you move the baby in with you in your room and give her a room where she can escape? She needs help. She gets admitted when she goes to the ER because she is suicidal. You need to work with her psychiatrist/therapist to figure out a way to keep her from spiraling. Also, stop saying she leaves as if she is going out with friends. She is fighting for her life.
It seems her past experiences are resurfacing in her current environment, posing challenges for her mental well-being.
OP, you went through a long post to say two things. 1. She is not well. 2. You and your son need to be away from her. Why are you trying to make sense of a mentally ill person? She's been committed multiple times, and you are still scratching your head. I'm starting to wonder what is wrong with you, if you can't boil it all down to what it is. These are not kinks, fetishes, or some obsessive lifestyle. She is mentally unfit. You should have been done when she pushed your mother down to the ground. Where do you draw the line? Why are you allowing your son to witness her behavior? Why are you still with this person who needs mental health care, not a husband or child? You need to sit with an attorney and come up with a plan to move your life to safety. She's unpredictable, trying to coax you into hitting her or whatever. This is a dangerous person. Excuse me, but if your profile isn't rage bait, the environment is extremely unhealthy for your son. Trying mushrooms while you have a kid around? Sounds like not only your wife has problems. You chose this. Go get therapy for why you wanted a homeless, crazy teenager that you had to rescue/fix. You've got some sort of enabler/savior pattern going on. Not necessarily your fault that you have that, probably something from your childhood. But it's your fault if you don't get healthier and show up better for your son. You can't control or fix your young, immature, mentally ill, half-feral wife. It's not your job. She's going to get better or not, and you aren't a part of that equation. So you, as a 28 years old, saw a homeless 19 years old and decided, this is it. This is who I'm gonna marry. Honestly, you should have seen this coming. She has major issues that have just been ignored all this time, even while you decided to get her pregnant. But I'm assuming you looked past all that because you had all the power, money, and control in the relationship. Otherwise, why go after someone so extremely vulnerable and in such a bad place? You married a homeless, troubled child when you were pushing 30 and are now shocked by Pikachu's face that she's acting like a troubled child? Divorce her. Let her have her time to grow up. Her family let her down and you stole her youth from her. So divorce her so she can be free. No offense, you pick up a stray, it will shit on the carpet, chew your shoes, and bite you. What did you expect? This woman needs serious mental help, therapy, and lots of meds, but she won't do it on her own because her patterns repeat, and it shouldn't be surprising. Loving her alone is not enough. She might also be using it, and I'd also check for STDs. I'd start making an exit plan, talk to a divorce lawyer. You'll likely get full custody and will be able to afford a place after your divorce. If you didn't have a child, I'd say you could possibly work with her and make a plan and stick to it, but you're like a year and 12 visits to the hospital past that. You have a child to think about, and that should be top priority. Not to be rude, but first slap yourself in the face. Do not expose your child to this kind of person. Once can be forgiven, but 4 times. Pull your head out of your ass. Sorry for the tough love. I bet your wife is off of her meds. Unfortunately, being bipolar is often very difficult to treat because people tend to go off their meds. They get into a manic phase, and they think they don't need their meds. If she's drinking at all, she's screwing up her meds, even if she is taking them. You cannot drink and take these meds. Psych meds lose their efficacy when you drink alcohol. Your wife is extremely mentally ill. She is not stable. She has never been stable. She was nothing but red flags when you met her. This is a problem because you never should have gotten into a relationship with her in the first place. When she wants to move and buy a house that's beyond your means, it's because she's in the manic phase. You need to learn more about what it is to be bipolar. There's type 1 and type 2. What type is she? Is she rapid cycling or not? Is she seeing a psychiatrist as well as a therapist? It doesn't sound like she is. And it doesn't sound like you understand what it is like to be married to a bipolar person, and you haven't been firm enough with her when it comes to taking care of herself. Forget pity. Forget any of that. You have a child together. You cannot subject your child to her because she's out of control and she will be damaging to your child. My mother was mentally ill. She was undiagnosed. Did it damage me? Hell yeah, it did. Get a divorce. Get full custody. There's nothing you can do to help her. She needs to want to help herself. You married a homeless teenager with undiagnosed bipolar and a drug addiction. 3 out of the 4 times she's left, she's gone to the ER due to her state of mind. The title of this post makes it seem like she's just taking off for no reason when in reality she's having a manic episode. You have been with her long enough to know what's happening. You make yourself out to be the victim in the post when in reality the only victim is your child. You married a teenager with a multitude of issues so she would feel like you saved her and let you control her, and now that isn't happening, you view yourself as the victim. You spent this entire post whining about how hard this is for you. Not once do you say you've even considered what your wife might be going through. You made the active decision to marry and have a child with someone that you knew was extremely unstable. I call bullshit on this all randomly starting 2 years ago. There would have been signs in your entire relationship. You ignored them. I'm not saying that you're not struggling, but I also don't believe that you're the perfect husband and father you claim to be. I would love to hear your wife's side of all this. So here's my bit. You're almost a decade older than your wife. She is clearly mentally unwell. You don't mention anything about helping your wife. It sounds like she's had to sort it all out for herself. If anything, it kind of sounds like you almost preyed upon her while she was homeless and experiencing difficulties. At no point in this post have you mentioned you have tried to help her in any way or form. There are so many things wrong with this. How long were you together before you? At 28, married a 19-year-old. There are times when she just bend over naked in front of our son and ask me to have sex with her then and there, for instance. As for this, why aren't you protecting your kid more? Why is this clearly unsafe person allowed around your child? WTF. I'm not reading all of that, but if what everyone in the comments is saying is true, you're a horrible person with a disgusting savior complex. You're a grown-ass man. Get it together. You have horrible taste and judgment. I wouldn't trust you or her around your damn son with parents like you too. I hope he turns out okay. This whole thing is fucking sick, and I feel so bad for your son for having to witness this shit show you call a marriage. If this is real, nothing has enraged me more than this line. There are times when she just bend over naked in front of our son and ask me to have sex with her then and there, for instance. That is sexual abuse, and somehow with all the other shit that you and your wife let this kid experience in his life, this is not a one-off thing. Not to mention you yourself got with a homeless 19 years old when you were, what, 28? And you're surprised the girl you groomed has mega issues. Pull the plug on this marriage. You need to do better for your kid, because at this rate he's gonna be messed up for life. Kinda serves you right for preying on a homeless, unstable teenager a decade younger than you. Creepy. Hopefully you can do what's right for the sake of your son, but your judgment is obviously deeply flawed. Good luck to the kid. Late 20s female FFS, get a divorce already. You are in a hell of your own making because you keep willingly going back into this mess. You are going to seriously fuck up your child if you don't get your shit together and give them a stable environment immediately. Get a divorce. Get custody. Get therapy. You have to break this cycle before you pass it on to your kid.
Before we wrap up, why don't we take a moment to hear from 2 more concluding perspectives?
I guarantee she had no help for her mental illness, and it's not abnormal to be homeless at a young age because of it. Most of your feelings are valid. She needs a psychologist and a psychiatrist to get her the help she needs. That is an expensive task, especially in the living situation that you are describing. She is not wanting to be on the streets to be happy. It's ingrained in her that she doesn't deserve a good life. She was also quite young when you met her. She isn't well, and you will have to make a decision that will keep your son in some kind of stable environment. It's pricey, but she needed to go to a mental rehab as an inpatient for quite a long time to get the help she needed. I'm sorry for your situation, and I wish you the best of luck. Well, no one really has given you anything other than shame, which you already feel. Poor choices. Now try to get your ducks in a row. Unfortunately, divorce is a given. This is not healthy for your son and you. Sell your house. If you have to start over, well, that's what you do. It will work out. I'm sorry this happened, but learn from it. It's not the end. It may be the beginning.
And that's a wrap, friends. We've explored a roller coaster of emotions, difficult choices, and unfiltered truths. Before we bid farewell, I'd like to pose this question: how do we extend empathy and support to those facing similar struggles in our own lives? Until next time.